The number of children caught up in the Cochlear implant bungle has doubled. Fund families had been raising concerns for years.
The number of potential victims is now 263, including a number of former patients who are now adults.
So I am going to be reading off the side on a script. So I apologize if I'm not paying attention. This is my fourth attempt trying to do this video now, I think. Hi everyone, my name is Annabelle. Most people call me Bells. And I have been going backwards and forwards for a very, very long time about whenever or not I should share this. But I know now that I can't keep the story inside anymore. Not just for me, but for anybody else who might be going through something similar and is feeling completely alone. Now, before I get into the main topic of this video, I think it's important to add a little bit of context. So, I was born perfectly healthy. Not a single fault in sight. However, as time went on, during my most developmental years, one thing became very present. And if anything, it just processed to get extremely worse as time went by. Between the ages of 2 to 4 years old, I was not consistently listening to the people around me. I would put the volume on the TV up way too high when watching Dora the Explorer, to the point where my parents would be yelling at me to turn it down in the kitchen. And I consistently would not understand what my ballet teacher would be telling me during classes. And I was essentially kind of a huge nuisance. When it seemed like this issue wasn't going away and it just only proceeded to get worse and worse as time went by the age of 4 or 5, I was finally diagnosed with Pension syndrome and large vestibular aqueducts. Now, these are rare diagnoses for people who are typically born profound deaf. Now, because I was not, and due to this uniqueness, there was an unpredictability about whether or not I would be able to keep my natural hearing long term. At this point in time, at 4 or 5 years old, I was completely deaf in my left ear. And it seemed like my right ear was compromised because it would fluctuate a lot. Sometimes it would be great on one day, maybe to a day to maybe even just a couple of minutes afterwards. It would suddenly drop, and then it would fluctuate again and be on and off. So there was always a huge concern around the fact that nobody knew whenever or not I would be able to hear after a certain age. Somehow, miraculously, I have been able to. Nobody knows why. So because of this uncertainty, it was decided that eventually, when I became of age to give a vocal opinion on whether or not it was something I wanted to do, there was an option to go down the path of having a cochlear implant. So that way I was guaranteed to have some sort of hearing if my natural hearing was to eventually progress in the worst direction. So I got my cochlear implant as a 14-year-old girl. This was 10 years ago. And at the time, I believed that everything I was feeling was just normal. I needed to get used to wearing the processor. It was going to be a progress. I was dealing with freshman year of high school. It was kind of a lot. But eventually, as time went by, and I can't say exactly how long it was, maybe a couple of months to maybe a year after, but at some point, things slowly started to change. I began having these very intensified headaches, pressure, and a strange discomfort around the implant side. I began having these strange, intense headaches, pressure, and a strange discomfort around the implant site. Sometimes so strong that it affected my ability to concentrate at school, to socialize, and to feel present. I had tried to explain it over the years. I really did. For most years, I kept on saying, something didn't feel right. Something is extremely uncomfortable. For years, it never really went anywhere. I was told different things at different times, but nothing that ever helped or brought clarity. Eventually, I stopped pushing because I started to believe maybe this was just my reality. And looking back now, I honestly think these symptoms shaped a huge part of my teenage and high school years. Proceed to say anxiety. And think there was a little bit of depression as well. If this particular diagnosis was something I carried for years and never quite felt like it fit me. Then eventually everything changed when the cochlear implant mapping issues at the Women's and Children's Hospital came to light. Suddenly, I had an urgent appointment with the same doctor who had been my surgeon and the person overseeing my care for about 18 years at this point. In that appointment, they had suggested that nerve blocking injections might be an option, because it was possible that the implant was sitting too close to her nerve. Hearing that was honestly overwhelming. It was the first time someone had offered a concrete explanation for the pain I had been describing for almost a decade. And it raised so many questions I didn't know how to process. I didn't feel ready to make a decision, so I decided to get a second opinion. And that's where things became even more confusing. The new doctor I saw was surprised, almost taken aback, by the idea of nerve-blocking injections. They were concerned about that suggestion, and they wanted to investigate more thoroughly before considering anything like that. Hearing two completely opposite opinions from two medical professionals left me feeling lost. Was this something serious? Was it nothing? Was this pain connected to the mapping issues? Or something different entirely? I still don't know. I'm still trying to find out the truth. And that is why I am finally sharing this. Because living in this kind of uncertainty, especially for this long, is incredibly isolating. And I'm hoping that somewhere out there, someone else with a cochlear implant has been feeling something similar. Maybe pain, pressure, headaches, discomfort, a metallic taste in the side of their mouth, a pinching, almost sapping sensation in the side of their neck directly under the ear that they had the surgery at. Or even just a sense that something wasn't right and nobody really listened. I do want to make something extremely clear that I'm not blaming anybody. I'm not making accusations. I'm just a person trying to understand my own health after 10 years of questions. If you've experienced anything like this, physically, emotionally, or medically, I would really appreciate hearing from you. Even just knowing that someone else understands this kind of frustration and fear would mean a lot. Thank you so much for listening to something that has taken me years to even speak out loud. I'm hoping this can finally be the first step towards some answers. For me, and maybe for others as well. Thank you.